Hi everyone, and welcome to the Generalist, where security practitioners come to look beyond niches, silos, egos, and hopefully build their competence and credibility. My name is Ilya Umanskiy, and we're continuing this new series that's called A View from a Non-conformist. And I have developed this skill, if you will, in order to constantly feed my curiosity, in order to constantly question what am I seeing, what am I observing. This helps me quite a bit when I conduct assessments of different organizations, when I advise clients, and I hope that you can get some useful views from these points that I share with you. The next three on my long list of observations about our industry and some fundamental problems that we continue to ignore are the digital video recorder, Wiegand and magstripe technology types that are used for credential readers. Last but not least, and probably I'll spend a little bit more time on it, is user interfaces. So let's start with the first one, my suspicion is that to this day, and again, please remember, it's 2021, if I were to do an informal poll of the wider community of security practitioners, we probably still have a bunch of organizations that use digital video recorders. Now, mind you, these are not network video recorders. These are not servers. These are not more sophisticated, more up-to-date technologies. We still, in some places, use digital video recorders. Now, some of them could be networkable, and some of them are not networkable at all. And those technologies should have ceased to exist and should have been replaced about 10 years ago. Just think about that. And we still have that in our organizations, in our facilities. Now, some of them deserve to have these because they're small businesses, and of course, I'm not suggesting that every little mom and pop shop discard their existing video recorder if it serves the purpose, right? But for most other organizations that have this technology, have this hardware, it is extremely limiting, both from the quality perspective and also from the perspective of scaling up when necessary. And also plugging in different camera brands and different other peripheral systems. So I think, in a sense, that if we have to stop and think, why are we embracing so much more new technology, but we're not noticing that some antiquated, terrible, old technology is still in place, that's something that I think should be on a lot of people's minds if they notice these types of technologies around, and if they have a decision-making authority to replace these technologies. Wiegand and magstripe are pretty much in the same boat. Wiegand is the second least secure method of accepting credentials, and magstripe is probably the least secure method of accepting credentials through reader heads and then sending that signal over to the access panel. Why? Because they've been designed pretty much without thinking about how these technologies could be compromised, and they can be and have been compromised very, very easily. Now, if we assume that I'm correct that these technologies have been compromised. And you can simply go and just Google, okay, Wiegand and magstripe credential technologies compromised, and you will see multiple studies that demonstrate how these technologies are very inferior. And yet, we still have a ton of reader heads that all only work on these two technologies. Again, tech that should have been replaced about 10 to probably 15 years ago. Okay, we still see in organizations. Now, in this case, unlike DVRs, this technology definitely does not have any application today. We all understand encryption. We all understand more secure methods of communication. And we not only have to think in terms of what type of communication protocol do I have between my credential and my reader head, but also what type of communication protocol I have between my reader head and my panel. Because until recently, while we have upgraded our held form factor credentials and reader heads, the signal that the reader head was sending to the panel was unencrypted. And in some cases, we still have those technologies sitting in our facilities. There is no place for them today and going forward anywhere. So whenever you have an opportunity to identify these, get rid of them as quickly as you can. And last but not least, but I'll spend a little bit more time on this issue. Why? Because we are headed in a very strange direction when it comes to embracing new technologies. We are headed in a direction where the sheer number of products that have a user interface in our industry alone has scaled up exponentially. We no longer can keep track, be it geographically or just from an application perspective, how many products are out there, because there's always going to be some new products that we have not yet maybe seen, because maybe they're being offered in different markets, but they still have some viable applications in those markets. The trouble with this loss of control of what kind of products are out there is with the fact that when those products are installed, they inevitably communicate with us through a user interface, and in most cases a graphical user interface. And when you sit in front of a computer and you have to operate something that is terribly designed and that is sending you all sorts of information, all sorts of signal that is so disjointed and does not allow you to see a comprehensive picture of what is happening through the different systems that are sending that signal to you, then the entire premise of having multiple technologies sending that signal to you, or even the one technology sending that signal to you, is useless. We don't have use for this. If we cannot intelligently, comfortably understand what we're seeing, and in a fairly comprehensive way, so that there's pattern making, there's the system itself is intelligent enough to give me as a user a good sense of what is happening, okay, and it has to be accurate. The other way is I, as a user, also manipulate the system. I have to click on little buttons, I have to sort different views, I have to reposition windows, and so on and so forth. There's so many user actions in these user interfaces. And to accomplish those actions is, to be polite, a challenge. And to be impolite, an absolute nightmare. And yet, manufacturers of different technologies that include software, that include user interfaces, continue to dump these non-user-centric and poorly designed technologies in our lab. And we are none the wiser. We accept them, and we believe that this is the best thing since sliced bread because it looks sexy. And yet, upon further scrutiny, it really does not stand up to our later developed list of needs. And not only needs for receiving content, but also the needs of manipulating this platform, this interaction with the software. So I feel like we really are at a critical point. And I mentioned to you that we have more and more tech coming our way, more and more diversification, new players coming into our industry with interesting products. But the biggest stumbling block is not in the cabling, it's not in perhaps some integration, it's not in delivery and maintenance of these products. The biggest stumbling block is in lack of awareness about user-centric design. And if we cannot solve user-centric design and make sure that user groups can manipulate and interact with different software through user interfaces comfortably and also see justifiably positive results every time they use that software, we are dead in the water, because next time I come to assess a facility and I find that users are struggling to move from task to task or show me how a certain platform works, you're done. Think about that. It doesn't matter how good, how sexy your system is. If you can't operate it, what's the benefit? So I leave you with these thoughts. I always welcome your suggestions and comments. If you have other fundamental problems that you see in our industry, I'm always happy to highlight them to the audience. So please share them. And I'm sure you've seen quite a few. Please stay safe. And as always, thank you for your attention.